My name is Vivian Stewart. I'm 32. I live in Evergreen Pines, HOA, just outside Denver, and I've clawed my way up in marketing for over a decade. I used to believe being the reliable neighbor who always said yes came before everything else until the board made damn sure I learned my place. At little Logan's 10th birthday bash in the community clubhouse, I dropped those 7 innocent words that detonated everything. Can't wait for the big neighborhood cruise next month. The chatter cut off like someone yanked the plug. 30 faces froze mid-laugh. That was the exact second I realized I'd been blacklisted from the HOA's flagship event. But it was also the second I decided the queen bee who ran this little suburban dictatorship was about to discover exactly what I owned. Let me drag you back to where the madness started. I'd moved into Evergreen Pines 5 years earlier because Uncle James, the developer who literally built these streets, had always called it the last good place. The lawns were emerald, the houses identical to rules, while the rules were written by people who clearly hated joy. Amanda Klein, our HOA president, wore the crown like it was glued to her helmet blonde head. She spoke in that syrupy voice that dripped concern but stung like wasp spray. For the good of the community, dear, was her favorite opener right before she slapped you with a $75 fine for having your American flag up one day past Memorial Day. Her husband Rick did stand-up comedy at every block party, except the jokes always landed on someone else's dignity, usually mine. Hey, Viv, still single? Must be all those late nights marketing yourself wrong. He'd bellow, and the clique would howl while I smiled like a good little resident. The rest of the board orbited Amanda like planets around a black hole. There was quiet Brandon, my next-door neighbor who never rocked the boat, and just gave me sympathetic shrugs. Taylor, the young mom across the cul-de-sac, who always looked 2 seconds from screaming. And me, I was the helper. The one who showed up with extra chairs for the 4th of July barbecue. The one who volunteered to repaint the clubhouse when the budget mysteriously vanished. The one who kept her grass at exactly 2 inches because Amanda's tape measure never lied. I paid every fine without argument. I even loaned Amanda $10,000 last summer when she swore the community pool roof was about to collapse. We'll pay you back the second the special assessment clears. Viv, I promise, family helps family. She cooed over her skinny vanilla latte. 6 months later, when I politely texted about repayment, she replied, "LOL, you make way more than us in marketing. It's not a big deal, right?" I stared at that text until the screen dimmed. It was a big deal. My salary was comfortable, but not throwaway $10,000 comfortable. The slides piled up like unpaid fines. I wasn't invited to the baby shower for Amanda's newest niece, even though I babysat her other kids for free every time she needed a me day. When I asked my mother, who also lived in the neighborhood, why, she sighed like I was the difficult one. Tight list, sweetie. Amanda has a lot on her plate. Tight list, my ass. The photos later showed half the block plus random cousins. Then came the Christmas donations. I dropped nearly $500 on gifts for the community toy drive Amanda organized. She publicly thanked our generous sponsors while side-eyeing me like I was trying to buy popularity. Every HOA meeting, she'd praise the core families who truly understood the vision. I sat in the back row taking notes like the good little secretary I apparently was. But the real poison was the rules themselves. One Tuesday, I got cited because my welcome mat was 1 inch too wide and therefore a tripping hazard. Another time, Rick's golf cart blocked the sidewalk for 47 minutes, and nothing happened, but my bird feeder was declared too rustic and removed at my expense. Amanda loved to patrol in her white golf cart, clipboard and hand fake smile plastered on. Just keeping standard high. Vivian, we all have to sacrifice for property values. Sacrifice, right? Meanwhile, her own lawn had a 6-foot political sign during election season because rules are flexible for board members, dear. I swallowed it all. I told myself this was just how neighborhoods worked. I kept my head down, worked 60-hour weeks at Pinnacle Marketing, and told myself that one day they'd see me as one of them. Until July 6th last year at Logan's birthday party. The clubhouse smelled like chlorine and vanilla sheet cake. I brought the kid the latest gaming console because I still believed being the cool aunt neighbor mattered. The party was in full swing when I overheard Amanda bragging to her inner circle about the upcoming HOA cruise. Private beach, private yacht mom, and dad already booked the captain's table. My ears perked up. No one had mentioned a cruise to me, but maybe it was a surprise for the whole community. I walked over still holding my slice of cake and smiled bright. Can't wait for the big neighborhood cruise. The temperature dropped 20 degrees. Amanda's face went from sugary to Arctic. Taylor suddenly found her shoes fascinating. It's kind of a limited head count thing, Vivian, Amanda finally said, voice sweet as antifreeze. Before I could process, my own mother appeared at my elbow. You wouldn't enjoy it, sweetie. You're more of a stay-at-home type anyway. Rick snorted loud enough for the whole room. Someone's got to stay behind and water the plants, right? 30 people watched me stand there with melting icing dripping onto my shoes. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I excused myself to the restroom, claimed a sudden work emergency, and left early. But something inside me had finally snapped clean in half. The last thread of Good Neighbor First had been cut. That night, I drove home through the identical streets under the identical streetlights and pulled up the password-protected portal Uncle James's lawyer had given me on my 32nd birthday 2 months earlier. Stewart Property Management, the company that held the master contract for every lawn, every pool, every rule in Evergreen Pines. 40% silent ownership. $2.8 million in value. The clause was crystal clear. Public slander or deliberate exclusion of the beneficiary triggered immediate disclosure rights and corrective action. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. They weren't just leaving me off a cruise. They were trying to rewrite the management contract to strip my voting power before I even knew I had it. I picked up the phone and called Morrison & Associates. MS. Stewart, the lawyer said, I was wondering when we'd hear from you. Happy belated birthday. I didn't waste words. It's time we discussed enforcing that public exclusion clause. And while we're at it, I want every email, every text, every back-channel conversation about the new contract. He paused. You understand this road ends with someone losing everything? They already tried to make it me, I answered. Now it's their turn. The next morning, Morrison called back with more bad news that somehow felt like the best news I'd ever heard. We've been monitoring the management company servers per the trust terms. Amanda and a couple board members have been drafting language that would let them terminate the current contract and rebid without your 40% approval. They think you're still in the dark. Cold fury settled in my stomach like ice. This wasn't about grass length or welcome mats anymore. This was about stealing my uncle's legacy right under my nose while they smiled and called me dear. I asked what he recommended. Document everything. Build the file. Wait for the perfect stage. That stage was already circled on my calendar. The HOA's 40th anniversary gala at Oakwood Country Club in September. 100 guests, Denver's business elite, the perfect spotlight. In the weeks that followed, I became a ghost with a camera. Every absurd fine I'd paid got scanned and dated. Every text where Amanda asked for community help, money that never got repaid, went into the folder. Taylor started meeting me at the coffee shop outside the gates because inside the walls had ears. They've been awful to you for years, Viv, she whispered over iced lattes. Rick's been telling everyone your marketing job is unstable, so no one trusts you with real committee roles. And that cruise? Only the inner circle and their plus ones. I was invited, but I told them I was sick. She slid her phone across the table. Screenshots of group chats where Amanda called me the helpful but needy one, and joked that my condo was probably rented, not owned. My blood pressure hit stroke levels, but I smiled. Save every single one. We're going to need them. Brandon, my quiet neighbor, surprised me next. He knocked on my door one evening holding a six-pack and looking like a man who'd carried guilt for years. I saw what they did at the birthday party, he said. I should have spoken up sooner. I'm in whatever you're planning. Together, the three of us mapped the full picture. Amanda wasn't just enforcing rules, she was weaponizing them. The pool roof money I'd loaned, straight into her own vacation home down payment. The baby shower I missed, full of board members and their friends while I got the tight list excuse. Worst of all, the contract rewrite was her baby. She convinced the older board members I was too young and emotional to handle real responsibility. The same lie my family had fed me for years now dressed up in HOA letterhead. I spent nights pacing my perfectly compliant condo, replaying every condescending for the community speech. I pulled out the emerald green sheath dress I'd bought on a whim and tried it on. It hugged every curve like armor. Uncle James's diamond earrings sparkled in the mirror. I looked like someone who belonged in the room full of Denver power players, not like the neighbor they could push around. The dress became my battle flag. Every time I zipped it up, I practiced the smile I'd wear when the mask finally came off. The absurdities kept coming right up to the wire. 2 weeks before the gala, Amanda's golf cart rolled up while I was watering flowers. Vivian, the board voted to require all front porch plants to be from the approved color palette. Yours are a little too vibrant. She snapped a photo for the citation. I just nodded. Of course, Amanda. For the community. Inside, I was screaming laughter because soon the only color she'd be seeing was the red of her own embarrassment. I forwarded the new find to Morrison with a single note, added to the pile. The stack is getting tall enough to bury her. By the night of the gala, my file was a bomb waiting for detonation. Screenshots, emails, financial transfers, the proposed contract language that would have quietly erased my ownership. Taylor's husband was running the AV. Brandon promised to stand by the doors in case anyone tried to stop the show. I arrived exactly on time, heels clicking across the marble foyer of Oakwood Country Club like a countdown. Amanda spotted me first. Her eyes widened at the dress, then narrowed. Vivian, that's quite the bold choice. I air-kissed her cheek the way she always did to everyone else. I felt like making a statement tonight. She laughed nervously and steered me toward the cocktails. The evening unfolded exactly as these things always did. Small talk, rubber chicken, and the slow build of toasts. Amanda took the microphone, first raising her glass to the core families who truly understand what Evergreen Pines is about. The room applauded. I caught Taylor's eye across the sea of tables. She gave the tiniest nod. Showtime. I walked to the stage, heels echoing like gunshots. Amanda tried to hand a mic to the next speaker, but I smoothly took it instead. The room quieted the way crowds do when they sense blood in the water. Since I've been left out of so many community moments lately, I began voice steady as steel. I thought I'd contribute something no one expected. The truth. I nodded to Taylor's husband. The massive screen behind me flickered to life. First slide. My $10,000 transfer labeled pool roof next to screenshots of Amanda's vacation home closing papers. Second slide. The text thread where she called me needy while asking for more money. Third slide. The draft contract language attempting to dilute my 40% without disclosure. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Amanda's face drained of color. This is slander, she hissed into the mic I still held. I smiled the first real smile in years. No, Amanda. This is 40% ownership of Stewart Property Management, the company your precious HOA pays 6 figures a year to. As of my birthday, I own the rules. And I'm done letting you rewrite them behind my back. My father, who sat on the board half rose from his table, face flushed the color of cheap wine. Vivian, why didn't you just come to us? I turned to the crowd. The same reason you didn't invite me on the cruise, the same reason I got fined for a welcome mat while Rick parked his golf cart wherever he wanted. You decided long ago who mattered in this neighborhood and who was just the helpful background character. My mother started crying, mascara racing down her cheeks. Amanda was frantically whispering to Rick, but the room was already turning. Phones came out. The gala had become a live stream, whether they liked it or not. I kept going because once the dam breaks, there's no stopping the flood. This morning, I filed the directive freezing all management payments, pending an investigation into misconduct. Specifically, the attempt to strip a major stakeholder of her rights without consent. Me. The murmurs became a roar. Someone in the back actually clapped. Amanda's perfect smile cracked like cheap porcelain. You can't do this. I built this community. No, I said softly into the mic, "My uncle built it. You just ruled it like a miniature tyrant with a clipboard." I handed the microphone back to the stunned event coordinator and walked off the stage head high. Taylor fell and stepped beside me, followed by her husband. To my shock, Brandon appeared at my elbow. "I didn't know how bad it was," he muttered. "You didn't want to know," I replied, but there was no anger left in my voice, just exhaustion and relief. "What happens now?" he asked as we pushed through the double doors into the cool September night. I smiled for real this time. "Now we rewrite the rules, starting with the ones that let one woman terrorize an entire neighborhood." The aftermath hit like a perfectly executed fine, but this time the citation was on Amanda. Within 48 hours, the screenshots leaked across every neighborhood Facebook group courtesy of Taylor's husband, who turned out to be a wizard at anonymous posting. Denver real estate circles buzzed. Amanda was removed from the board pending the fraud investigation. The management contract stayed exactly as written, which meant my 40% gave me veto power over any future changes. Rick's little side gigs dried up overnight when clients realized who his wife really was. They sold their oversized house and moved to a cheaper subdivision 2 towns over where the HOA apparently had looser standards. I felt zero guilt. Justice isn't cruelty, it's balance, finally restored. My parents tried the usual dance. Dad sent long emails full of justifications, but we were protecting the community values. Mom left tearful voicemails begging me to fix things with Amanda for the sake of the neighborhood. I replied to exactly one message. I needed neighbors. You needed favorites. The math never added up. After that, the voicemails stopped. The neighborhood itself started to breathe. People who had been terrified of Amanda's clipboard began waving at me again. Someone even left a bottle of wine on my porch with a note. "Thank you for finally mowing down the real eyesore." Black humor at its finest. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. Stewart Property Management thrived under new, transparent leadership. The board voted to remove the old CEO, my father, and offer me the chair. I declined. I nominated Brandon instead. He'd moved back into the neighborhood full-time and proven himself honest, capable, and finally brave enough to speak. I kept my board seat, but stayed at Pinnacle Marketing, where I'd just been promoted to senior director. The absurd rules got rewritten. No more couleur palette police. Flags could fly whenever residents wanted. Welcome mats could be any damn size. The lawns still had to be mowed, but no one was measuring with a tape to the millimeter anymore. Small victories, but they felt huge. Amanda and Rick's new life in the cheaper subdivision came with its own gossip. Taylor heard they were struggling to keep up with even basic dues after years of living like royalty on other people's money. I felt no satisfaction in their hardship, only the clean satisfaction of consequences finally landing where they belonged. My relationship with my parents remains complicated but civil. Mom showed up one rainy afternoon with actual tears and an apology that sounded real for the first time. I always thought Amanda needed protecting more. "You seem so self-sufficient, I convinced myself you didn't need me." I was wrong. We drank coffee and talked for hours without the old landmines. I didn't promise forgiveness, but I promised honesty. It was enough to start. Brandon and I grew closer than we ever were when the old power structure still loomed over us. He calls me his silent partner, now a joke that lands differently these days. "I was a coward, Viv," he admitted over late-night beers on my new Mountain View deck. "I saw everything, but I was scared of losing my spot. I'll spend the rest of my life making that right. Just be a better neighbor going forward," I told him. That's all I ever wanted. Taylor and her husband became Sunday dinner fixtures. They're expecting their first child and asked me to be godmother. Real family, the kind that chooses you instead of tolerating you. I bought a new condo with actual personality, no more beige compliance colors. I redecorated exactly how I wanted without worrying about HOA approval. I even started dating Daniel, a kind architect who never once joked about my job or my marketing hours. The first time he met my new circle of friends, he fit. Right and no comparisons, no digs, just simple appreciation. Last week, I received an invitation to Logan's 11th birthday. It came directly from the kid himself. I miss Aunt Viv, and I don't understand why the grown-ups are fighting. I sat with that email a long time thinking about cycles and choices. In the end, I replied that I'd love to celebrate with him, but suggested our own arcade day instead of the official party. He answered with excited emojis. I scheduled the day off and ordered a cake that says Adventures with Aunt Viv in bright blue frosting. I won't use the kid as a weapon the way Amanda used community events as one. There's a difference between revenge and reclamation, and I'm all about the latter now. Uncle James once told me during a fishing trip when I was 14, family is important, Vivian. But family isn't just blood. It's who sees your worth and helps you see it too. At 32, I finally found mine. Some connected by property deeds, others by choice, but all of them see me clearly. I stopped apologizing for taking up space, for being successful, for wanting what I earned. The silent neighbor found her voice, and she's never letting anyone mute it again. A year to the day after the gala, I received a package at my office. Inside was a framed photo of Uncle James on his boat, smiling with the Rockies behind him. Tucked in the corner was a handwritten note in his familiar scrawl. To Vivian, the strongest steward, may you always navigate your own course. The lawyer's letter explained it was time for delivery on this exact date. He believed by now you would have come into your full power. I hung the photo where every client could see it. When people ask, I tell them it's a reminder that sometimes the most valuable inheritance isn't money or property, it's the courage to stand up for yourself. Last month, the management company posted its most profitable quarter in years under Brandon's leadership. The board voted to expand into commercial properties, a move I had championed from the beginning. One of the older members, a former ally of my father, clapped me on the shoulder. James will be proud. He always said you had the best head for business in the whole neighborhood. Thank you, I replied. I think he'd be proud of all of us for finally moving forward. I still keep a file on my desk with every screenshot, every fine, every manipulative text. Not for legal reasons, anymore the battles are long over. I keep it as proof of how easy it is to normalize mistreatment when it comes from the people who are supposed to protect the community. Amanda reached out once 6 months after she moved. Her email was a weird mix of blame and fake olive branch, suggesting we put the past behind us for the kids. No real apology, just the expectation that I would once again smooth things over. I replied simply, I'm open to rebuilding when you're ready to acknowledge what you did. Until then, I wish you well. She never answered. I never expected her to. My mother and I now meet for lunch once a month, carefully avoiding old minefields while discovering new common ground. She's joined a book club, started painting again, things she loved before the HOA and marriage swallowed her identity. Sometimes I catch glimpses of the woman she could have been without the weight of other people's expectations. I admire your boundaries, she told me last time. I wish I'd had your strength at your age. It's not too late, I said, and I meant it. My father is a different story. He resigned his board seat but kept a tiny ownership stake. Brandon says he seems lost without the power that once defined him. I feel sympathy, but not enough to return to the old dynamics. Some distances stay for a reason. As for me, success really is the sweetest revenge, but it's also the best path forward. I've been invited to speak at marketing conferences, I mentor young professionals, and I even teach a guest course at my old university. My life feels full in ways it never did when I was desperately trying to earn approval from people who would never give it. Daniel and I moved in together, merging our lives without power struggles or hidden scorekeeping. His family welcomed me with open arms, no comparisons, no exclusions, just genuine warmth. The first dinner at their house, his mother hugged me and said, "We've heard so much about you, all good." I cried in the car on the way home. Daniel simply held my hand. He already knew the whole story. Last week, another invitation arrived, this one to a neighborhood-wide reunion organized by a distant resident. Amanda and my parents would be there. I stared at the card a long time, weighing old pain against new strength. In the end, I decided to go not to prove anything, but because I'm no longer afraid of anyone's ability to shrink me. I'll attend with Daniel at my side, wearing my success comfortably without apology. The excluded neighbor is excluded no more. The silent partner now speaks with authority. And Vivian Stewart, marketing director, board member, beloved neighbor, trusted friend, valued partner, finally knows her worth. Uncle James was right. Community matters, but self-respect is non-negotiable. And sometimes the greatest revenge isn't making others suffer for their mistakes. It's refusing to let their mistakes define you any longer. I am Vivian Stewart, and this is my story. Not the story of what the HOA Karen did to me, but the story of what I chose to do about it. The story of how I stopped waiting for a seat at their table and built my own, instead one with room for everyone who genuinely cares. That table turns out to be far larger and far more welcoming than I ever imagined. And the cake served here never leaves a bitter aftertaste. 2 years after the gala, I stood at the entrance to the garden terrace at Riverside Park, surrounded by white roses and silver ribbons from my wedding to Daniel. Taylor was my maid of honor. Brandon gave me away. Logan, now 12, was our ring bearer, beaming in his first suit. My mother sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes. My father and Amanda were not there. Invitations had been sent, but the RSVPs never came. In their place were colleagues who became friends, neighbors who became family, and the circle that stood by me through every storm. As the music swelled and I prepared to walk down the aisle, I felt Uncle James's presence not as a ghost, but as the echo of his belief in me. "Ready?" Brandon asked, offering his arm. I looked at all the faces who chose to be here and nodded. More than ready. Daniel waited at the altar, eyes never leaving mine. In his gaze was everything I once thought I'd never find: acceptance, without conditions; love, without obligation; partnership, without power plays. The officiant spoke of choosing your community, of building connections based on mutual respect rather than obligation. We had written our own vows, promising to celebrate each other's strengths without keeping score. At the reception, surrounded by real joy, I realized the biggest plot twist wasn't the inheritance or the public takedown. It was discovering that life after the fight could be richer than the fight itself. Logan found me during the dancing, face serious. "Aunt Viv, Mom says I'm not supposed to talk to you, but I don't get why. You're the only grown-up who ever asks what I think." I crouched to his level. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, kiddo. We get caught in our own hurt and forget what matters. Are you and Mom ever going to be friends again?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "But no matter what, I will always be your Aunt Viv. That never changes." He nodded solemnly. "I'm glad you're happy now. You smile more." Out of the mouths of babes. Later that night, Daniel asked if I had any regrets about how everything played out. "Not regrets," I said. "But I've learned revenge is only the turning point. What matters is what you build after the old structures fall." "And what have you built?" he asked, hand warm against mine. I looked around at the laughter, the connections, the life I had reclaimed. A community without obligation. Love without conditions. A life without apology. He smiled and kissed me. To the woman who wrote her own rules. I clinked my glass against his. And to Uncle James, who gave me the blueprint. As we drove away, rice and rose petals clinging to our clothes, I thought about the long road from that melting cake at Logan's party to this moment of pure joy. The path had twists, legal battles, sleepless nights, and moments of loneliness, so sharp they stole my breath. But it also delivered strength I never knew. I had friendships that became family and a love story that would never have existed if I'd stayed the quiet, compliant neighbor. The emerald dress from the gala still hangs in my closet next to my wedding gown. 2 pivotal outfits, 2 turning points, 1 life, finally mine. Uncle James gave me more than shares or money. He gave me the perfect timing and the courage to use it. He believed in me until I learned to believe in myself. And in believing, I found not just revenge, but redemption. Not just justice, but joy. My name is Vivian Stewart. I'm 34. I live in the Denver suburbs. I've worked in marketing for over a decade, and I used to think being the perfect neighbor came before everything else until I learned that sometimes putting yourself first is the only way to build a community worth belonging to. That's the real story. Not how I got even, but how I finally got free. And freedom, it turns out, is the sweetest revenge of all.